Can you tell us what the reason is that you think PG&E is responsible for this disaster?
Well, obviously that night there were a lot of anecdotal reports, 9/11 calls, that we know where those calls came from and what time they came from. And the reports of PG&E having down power lines and down transformers were from locations that were the exact same locations where the fire was reported to have just begun. In fact, one gentleman called in and he said, "I just saw a tree fall into a line and a fire just started." So that's good anecdotal evidence. The other thing is we have wonderful satellite imagery that shows precisely where the fire started. We have weather reports showing that it started up near Calistoga. Obviously, everybody knows it came south and west. Right here, it came right through here and through your house, unfortunately, and continued down into Santa Rosa. But overall, there's a very good footprint with where this fire began and where it went. And so there's pretty strong indicators that the origin of the fire is right in the location of PG&E's equipment, which was felled by a falling tree, by other equipment that fell. And importantly, in California law, once you show where the fire starts and that it started as a result of PG&E's equipment failing, they're presumed under California law to have failed to maintain it properly. It's almost a strict liability for this fire.
There are a lot of people who have called our office and have said, okay, we decided to go after PG&E like a lot of other people. What would keep PG&E from just turning around, trying to declare bankruptcy and wiping the whole thing out?
Well, PG&E is a $33 billion corporation. They've caused a lot of damage here, but they have more than enough resources to withstand doing their part to pay for the financial damage that they caused. Some people have estimated that PG&E bears $10 to $12 billion in liability, but that's for all the fires, and people are going to have to establish that they caused particular fires. Our law firm and your law firm are focused on the Tubbs fire because we know that the Tubbs fire began in a specific location up near Calistoga and that PG&E was involved. While there were tons of houses, over 5,600 houses destroyed by the Tubbs fire and over 23 people killed, PG&E is a large, thriving corporation that will be able to write that check, and they should have to write that check.
Now PG&E, I think it was either the day of the fire or the next day, put out some sort of statement about hurricane force winds and something called an act of God, saying that it was the winds that caused the lines to go down. What would you make of that?
Well, I think it's tricky lawyer talking. What they're confusing or they're trying to conflate is what happened here versus what happened up near Calistoga when the fire began 3 hours before. The relevant wind velocity is at 9:30 at night when this fire began up near Calistoga, and we've got National Weather Service vanes, wind gauges, that tell us exactly what that was, and it was about 30 miles an hour. Now, after you burn down several 100,000 trees as it migrates, as the crow flies, tens of miles down here to Santa Rosa, it creates its own meteorological event. It's almost like a hurricane that starts off as, a small event, but it sucks energy out of the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico and becomes stronger and stronger and more violent. That's what happened with this fire. But the relevant wind speed is up near Calistoga, and it wasn't hurricane winds. It was about 30 miles an hour, well below the state minimums of poles and wires being required to withstand 56-mile-an-hour winds.
Can you tell us something about what things PG&E can do in order to avoid having a disaster like this happening in the future?
Well, they can follow California law. California law is very particular, both from California Supreme Court cases that are 80 years old, from statutory provisions that specifically require a robust maintenance program that primarily is designed to do two things. You've got to separate the trees from the wires. And let's be honest here, the trees were there first. It's PG&E that went and installed these wires in the middle of these forest areas, and so they have the obligation under both the case law and the statutory law and PUC rules to maintain minimum clearances between the trees and the wires. They also have maintenance obligations with respect to the poles. Their poles have to be inspected. Their equipment has to be inspected. That inspection has to be done on a systematic, periodic basis. It has to be recorded at the time, and it has to be supplied to the PUC, reported every July 1st, under the law. And so if they didn't follow that law, and they failed to maintain those clearances such that during high winds that we all knew would happen, they know those winds are going to happen and the trees are going to fall over, you don't have the clearances right, it doesn't take a genius to figure out it's going to fall over right into electrical lines that when they fall over, start fires. And that's exactly what happened here. Now, Roy, if somebody here in Santa Rosa is thinking about filing suit against PG&E but wants to get some more information from a seasoned lawyer like yourself, how do they get a hold of you at Hansen&Miller?
There are a number of ways. They can certainly call us at 575-1040. They can email me at fire@hansenmiller.com, or they can go to our website we've set up, which is firejustice.com. This video and many others will be available for them. There are tons of resources and links for them to explore, and I encourage them to give us a call so we can discuss their situation more.